intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations.
I always like to say I think we're in for a good time when I'm laughing before we even hit the record button, and I think we're in for a great time tonight. As our guest, she's got her debut album, Dear Life, coming out on March 7th. She's a country artist, songwriter. Let's just get right to it and welcome in Haley Mae Campbell.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to join us and share a drink. And as we were joking, I grabbed a whole bottle. I don't know why I didn't grab the glass, but this is a show called Bar Conversations. I like to have a drink. I've got a little Green River, a little wheated bourbon tonight. What are you drinking? What's your go-to drink these days?
I've got a whiskey ginger here. My husband is very heavy into the whiskey gingers, so a little Jack and ginger ale type of situation. The pro tip though is Jack green apple with the ginger ale. It's amazing. It's really, really good. So that's what I've got rocking over here.
I like it. Now, I'm guessing though you don't turn down. You could have a drink of any kind is what I was going to say. Because I looked at your social media. You might have shotgunned a beer in the snow. You might have done some fun things.
I might have done some fireball shots with my dad on the ski lift, I'm pretty much good for anything but gin. Gin doesn't agree with me. I don't know why. Every time that I've ever tried it, it's been a bad time. So I'm primarily a whiskey girl when it comes to liquor, but that's probably the Irish in me. But I'm a beer drinker. I'm a wine drinker. I can pretty much go for most anything except for gin.
I was gonna say fireball while skiing seems like a dangerous combination to me.
It's actually, you would think that, but it's kind of also like a rite of passage. Everybody on the slopes is always they've got their fireball in the pocket. It's kind of crazy. It's a cultural thing, I think.
Well, and it'll warm you up. I know that.
Exactly.
And you talked about your Irish roots. Do you dabble in the Irish whiskeys and stuff like that, or do you
I do a little bit. Nothing too crazy. But my favorite whiskey for the last few years and probably for the next few years has been my fiddle player, Ryan Gilmore. I grew up playing with him in Charleston, South Carolina, and he's played on all my records. He bought me for my birthday a bottle of Irish whiskey called Writer's Tears. And he was like, I just thought this was so perfect for you because you know how you're sad and you're writing songs and you're Irish. I was okay. You're laughing about it. I'm so glad you see me, right? And then I tried it and it's such a fantastic whiskey and it's actually getting a little bit harder to find, which is how you know it's good. But I'll tell you what, I have an anniversary version bottle that's ridiculously expensive that I bought that I'm kind of just saving. And I've been saving it for, I think I bought it 2 years ago. And honestly, I think I need to open it when the album comes out. Because what else am I saving it for, right?
I was going to say, you're already married. So, I mean, what else?
I know. I'm what else am I waiting for? I have to crack that bad boy open and get a taste. But Writer's Tears is a fantastic
I was going to say, that'll be... Well, I mean, that's a perfect time for it. And, it
is.
Have you been able to go over to Ireland, travel that way, and get to visit some places, or are you a travel person?
Yes, thank God I am a travel person. I am 5 feet tall. I fit perfectly in any vehicle. I love being on tour. It's my favorite part of the job. I've been to Ireland once when I was a little kid. And over the pandemic, I actually was able to take the extra time that I had at home, and my grandma was born there, so I was actually able to get dual citizenship approved. So I have dual citizenship. I'm an Irish and American citizen, which is so cool, and I have an Irish EU passport and all this stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to making the most of that in the coming years. But I got to go over to London for C2C in 2023, and that just reaffirmed my need to go and spend some time over there. But I need to, now that I'm obviously of age and all that, when I was a kid, obviously I was just, playing in the yard or doing whatever you do here. But now, of course, I need to go to the Guinness factory. I need to go and reconnect with my homeland. I need to do all the things. I'm ready for an Ireland trip for sure.
Well, and like you said, you just recently, were taking fireball shots while skiing. So How was the ski trip? I mean, are you so do you like all the seasons? Because clearly, I mean, if you're skiing, you must enjoy winter a little bit.
It's funny you say that because I honestly hate the cold. But my dad is an avid skier. I feel like I am the son that he never had. So between my sister and I was always kind of the tomboy of the two, like doing the sports and all the things. But we went on our very first ski trip together when I was probably like 10 years old, maybe 12. And it's been so long since we've gone together. The last time we went I was in middle school, I think, maybe early high school. And I always say every year, like he goes with his friends and I'm always like, oh, like I'm going to join you one year. And he's like, you never joined me. And I've recently been playing some gigs out in Colorado. So when I got booked there in January, I was like, okay, Dad, it's time to go. Like we got to go skiing. So he was so excited and it was so much fun.
So you much prefer, though, maybe a little bit warmer season then?
I prefer not thinking about the weather. I love seasons where it's like, I don't know if it's hot. Like, I love walking outside and not being like, oh, it's hot or oh, it's cold. Like, I like when it's just like, this feels the same as inside. So I probably should live in California, but I don't. But if I have to pick, I definitely would pick the warm weather. Because when I'm cold, like, I'm insufferable. I'm so annoying. I can't, like, all I can think about is I'm cold.
So you're loving all the seasons then in Nashville right now.
No, I know. Nashville is honestly the perfect mix for me. I mean, I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, where it's always 1,000,000 degrees. So, I mean, I love being in Nashville. I love to get like one good big snow a year is what I always say. We get like one big snow. Just a few weeks ago, we got like 6 or 7 inches of snow. And our buddy, my drummer, Jeff, he has a 4-wheel drive truck. So he comes and picks us up. We go out sledding. We have a day. And then, we're good on winter for like another year.
Well, and in addition to loving, the warm weather, you like this thing that you do on the side, I think, called music. And
yeah, absolutely.
Have you always been into music and performing? When did that become part of life for you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up homeschooled, actually, which is kind of like a fun fact, a little bit of a secret, but not too secret. But I grew up doing kind of musical theater and that type of thing when I was like little. So by the time that I got to about 13, 14, when I was starting middle school, I really had just like fallen in love with performing in general. And I got a guitar for my 13th birthday. And kind of just like went to town writing songs and kind of turning those feelings that I didn't really know how to feel into songs. And that was definitely the beginning of that for me. I obviously, like I said, fell in love with performing and I started to play like little cover sets and things in my hometown. I had what I realize now looking back was a pretty solid gig. I had a standing gig at the local restaurant playing every Wednesday and Saturday night. And I think they would pay me like $100 or $150. And I mean, I was 14, so I was like, dang, like I'm kind of making some good money over here doing this. And that was like really my first job. Like if you want to even call it a job, I started taking my guitar, on the days in between. I would go downtown Charleston where I'm from and set up my guitar case, open it up. I had a peddler's license, which my dad has actually gotten framed for me. And it's really cute. It's on my wall. And that was like, because that's like my first official, I was out there performing. It's really cute. But I would do that and he would drop me off for like an hour, 2 hours max. My fingers were like bleeding by the time I was done. I was, so young, but I would play out there. And I remember somebody walked by one day and he was like, hey, like, you're really good. We have a cover band. We play, at the local bars on weekends. Like, we're looking for a female singer to help out with like singing some of the songs. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. Like, hire me. Like, my mom will drop me off at practice. And they were like, wait, what? They didn't know I was so young. So, I mean, about 15, 16 years old, I was out there playing bars and gigs and things like that and turning down drinks from bartenders and stuff. But it gave me so much experience. And I'm really, really grateful for all that time that I got to kind of just experiment with so many different versions of, learning the ropes and kind of doing it at my own pace and having a lot of fun along the way.
I was gonna say, I mean, I love that the fact that you have the peddler's license, and there's so I feel like we could just go down a whole rabbit hole with the things you
Oh,
saw and did
100%.
on
Oh my
that.
God, it's never ending. It's never ending.
And who knows, maybe one day that could be like an album cover or a single cover.
Oh
or
yeah,
something.
we'll do like another interview, a follow up where we'll do all that.
Well, and you talk about loving kind of just the performance and things like that. Did you grow
Yeah.
up in a musical family? Like, were there others in your family that liked it, or were you kind of just someone that was a little different?
You know what's so funny is like some members of my extended family are definitely musical, but it was never like a constant in my family. I think just the way that my sister and I were raised, being homeschooled, like my mom kind of just wanted to expose us to like everything that she could. So we kind of did like a little bit of everything and then just like saw what stuck. So I mean, I did every sport you could imagine, every sport. And then we started like in musical theater when I was in elementary school. And that, for me, that love of performing just really took very quickly. And then I picked up like the violin and I was like a fiddle player there for like just a little small part of time. And I actually went to like an arts focused middle school where I was like a strings major. I played in orchestra, things like that. And then it still wasn't quite right, but it was really close. And of course, like the guitar kind of came into the picture when I was mentioning that busking that I did downtown. I originally started doing that on a ukulele. I didn't even know how to play guitar yet. But I had gotten a ukulele from like the local music shop. And that was kind of close enough for my parents to say, well, maybe she'll like this. And they got me a guitar. And that was kind of game over for them. They never had like another night of like peace and quiet ever again. It was just me in my room, like
Hey, it could
playing
have
way
always
too
been
loud.
worse. They could have given you drums, and then that would have been a whole
They
different
gave me
story.
the violin and they were like, this is so bad. This is so bad. Please, let's get a different instrument going on in here. But that was, around age 13, that really took. And I started, writing my own songs after that. So that was kind of the progression there, but definitely fell in love with the performing of everything first.
And you talk about performing songs, and I know you were writing some stuff then as well. But what music did you grow up on? What music were you playing? Where did that kind of take you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'm so fortunate. I got to go on my very first nationwide tour. I guess I keep saying last year, but it's actually end of 2023 now, with the wonderful and talented Miss Alexandra Kay. And when I was putting together my set, I gave thought to this exact sentiment because I was like, okay, like I need to give these people a little bit of an idea of like, who the heck am I? Why am I here? So it was something I thought about. And I'm so happy to say that one of my first musical experiences of just kind of like figuring out country music and like learning about it and hearing it for the first time was my parents drove one of those station wagons with like the rear facing seats in the back. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was a Plymouth or like what it was. I was so young at the time.
Wood on the side?
Yeah. Oh, big time. Wood paneled, two rear facing seats in the back, like a limo, but not at all. And definitely not child safe. Like you're not supposed to put kids back there. But we were back there and the stereo was blaring.
You survived.
And exactly. We survived. We're better for it, right? But my parents listened to a ton of what I like to call like alt country. Like they listened to everything but mainstream country. They listened to like rockabilly and like kind of like rock country and like all of that kind of thing. So one of the first artists that I remember hearing was Alison Krauss back there in the back of the station wagon. A lot of bluegrass, the old 97s, if you've heard of them. They were, you should check them out. You'll love them. The epitome of the rockabilly genre. But they're absolutely amazing. And I just grew up on like a lot of that, just like really rootsy kind of country. I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people would consider it just kind of like old school, but I definitely think of it more as that like rockabilly, like it has that kind of sensibility to it. And some of that just like bluegrassy country, like Alison Krauss I mentioned. But that was like kind of my first foray and like experience of listening to country music. And then I was vehemently against country music when I was like a teenager. I was like, this is not No, when I first started, like, I picked up that guitar, and, like, don't get me wrong, the songs that I was writing, they were country songs, like, the entire time, but I was listening to pop music and hip hop and, like, just alternative indie music. Like, I was listening to everything but country and still writing country music, and I was like, no, this isn't right. And I remember I had just gotten my driver's license. So, guys, we're in South Carolina, okay? Don't judge. I got my license at 15, okay? I was driving around. I know, some people from New York hear that and they're like, that's too young. And I agree. But what can you do?
You survived.
Again, I survived. I learned. But I was driving around literally right outside my hometown, and I was listening to the country radio station because I didn't have an aux cord at that point. My car didn't have one. So I was listening to the local country station, and Somewhere With You by Kenny Chesney came on. And I was like, oh shit. Wait, am I wrong about this country music thing? So I like went home and I listened to that song like 100,000 times on repeat. And I was like, oh man, like I think country music is actually like maybe there's a reason that I like can't stop writing these type of like storyteller songs. I just related to it so much, more than I'd ever related to like any other type of pop song or anything like that I've been kind of trying to fit myself into. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, like let's really dive in. And then I was, before I knew it, I was opening for people at the local radio station for their radio shows and meeting, Brothers Osborne, Dan and Shay, Carly Pierce, all these amazing artists that have just come so far and are such huge inspirations. But I kind of had to go through that stubborn teenage phase for sure. So I'm glad that I did, but it's a long roundabout way of showing you where I came from.
Everyone that I talked to pretty much at some point in their life was trying to be in like a rock band, and they realized at some point that may not be where they were supposed to be. But
there's a point where you have to just fit into what feels natural, for sure.
Well, and you talk about being able to do some of those radio shows, meet some of those artists. I'm guessing being able to grow up in a town like Charleston, South Carolina, where you did have a plethora of genres that would come through, concerts, different things. What impact did that have on you? Just the city itself, and then kind of being able to see people and meet people like that.
Yeah, 100%. And all my friends were in rock bands. Like, all my friends were in these cool rock bands, and I was like trying to get on their guest list because I was too young to get into the show. That type of thing where it's like you just put that on a pedestal so heavily, especially when you're just so young. You don't know any better, and like you don't know anything other than like what's right in front of you. So when all my, older friends were like in those bands, I was like, well, this is the only kind of thing to do here. And it wasn't until I started kind of like learning more about Nashville and having those experiences with like the local radio station that I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to check out like this Tennessee thing. Excuse me, sorry. But yeah, I mean, after kind of having a few of those experiences and like attending those local country shows where, I mean, I'm sure the radio station hosts these amazing, country like summer concert series, and you're like, this is kind of awesome. Like, what's going on here, It's not like some dirty club where you're like shoulder to shoulder. You're like, wow, this is nice. There's like a park and we're all in lawn chairs, and these songs are incredible, and the artist on stage is like sharing part of their life with me that I can really relate to. I just fell in love with every aspect of it once I started really diving in. And I'm just so lucky because the country genre is so welcoming. And for me being such a young artist at that point, I mean, like I mentioned, like I got to open for Carly Pierce at the Party in the Park, which is what it was called back in Charleston. And it's like one of the best, interactions I've ever had with an artist. Like, she was so kind, so welcoming, and we were like sharing a green room, and I was like, I'm so like, me and my little acoustic band, we were like, we're so sorry, like we're in your way. And she was like, you're not in my way, it's your show too. And like that stuck with me so hard throughout the years. Just the folks in the country genre just truly are unlike any other people. I mean, it's amazing for sure. It's just been such a welcoming experience.
Well, and you talk about being able to perform at a young age and kind of do things. I think if I read right, you went out touring right out of high school, right, with your band and things like that. Like, what was that like? I mean, looking back now, I'm sure you have a whole different perspective than you did at that time. But I mean, what was that like to be able to do something like that?
100%. Yeah, I graduated high school. So like I said, I was homeschooled, and then I was like, okay, I need to have some social interaction. Like, I need to leave my house. So I went to an art school for middle school, and then I went to the complimentary magnet high school for high school. And I left after my sophomore year because I was so invested in the music aspect of my life that I just didn't have time to do 4 hours of homework every night. And I was like, Mom, please, like, and she was, excited to have me back home. But I ended up actually switching out to an online high school because at the point that I left my sophomore year, I only needed 2 more credits to graduate because I was on like such an accelerated kind of schedule. And I was like, am I going to spend 2 years, in a school to, get all this experience and amazing credits? But like, I kind of knew that I like wasn't going to go to college, and I knew that like my passion was with music. So, for me to realize that I could kind of basically finish everything in 6 months and be that much further ahead in my music career, that was so valuable to me. And I'm so grateful to my parents for like letting me do that. Like, that's kind of insane. And I realize that now. In the moment I was like, no, this makes total sense. But like now when I look back, obviously I'm like, that's amazing that they were able to like kind of like take that chance on me. And just like let me follow my intuition like that, which I'm so grateful for. But yeah, I basically took that opportunity and I kind of ran with it. I mean, I remember those like early experiences of getting booked on like a festival or something like that in Charleston. Like, I got to open for Sheryl Crow. And I was like, something good is happening here. Like, I must be doing something right, because I was just kind of having those experiences and leaning in more and more and more. So that by the time that I would have been graduating high school, I was basically moving to Nashville at that point. But yeah, when I graduated, I insisted my family go to my online graduation, which they hosted in Columbia, South Carolina. I was like, they're like, Haley, they can mail you the diploma. I'm like, no, we're going to my graduation. Dragged my high school best friend with me. I'm like, you have to go. I went to yours. You have to go with me. And it was the most average experience, of course, of all time. But I took my photos in my cap and gown, and I was proud of myself for, making the decisions that I did make to get to that point. But yes, to your point, I did then the next day leave on essentially a 4-week summer tour that my mom and I booked through the incredible website Indie on the Move. Yeah, we just booked a bunch of coffee shops. We booked a bunch of tin roofs. We booked a bunch of just essentially cover gigs, but with the opportunity to play some original music there along the way. And we took the kids that I've been playing with throughout high school and at these different random things around Charleston, and we piled in a van and we made the most of it. We had a great time. We had like a Kickstarter campaign, and it was just an amazing time. It was an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything, for sure.
Well, and like you said, eventually you ended up in Nashville. What
Yeah.
pushed you to move there, and how has that been? Because I'm guessing that probably had a huge impact on everything for you.
Oh, 100%. I basically decided to move to Nashville pretty shortly after getting back from that tour. I would say I spent about the next year in Charleston, and I was like, at that point, I had made several trips back and forth to Nashville, and I had actually recorded my first album, which, no longer exists. So don't go looking for it. But you go to Nashville at 15, you make that album that everybody makes, and you figure it out from there. But that was the album that we had kind of taken on tour that summer. And I spent that next year, living at home and kind of gigging and being in those bar cover bands. And I kind of felt that pull immediately the first time that I went to Nashville. But the more that I kind of like grew into just the artist that I was slowly starting to become, I kind of knew that what I wanted to do only existed in Nashville. I mean, I could have stayed in Charleston and done cover gigs, and I probably could go back and do cover gigs, but I just kind of knew that if I wanted to chase like the dream that I specifically had, I needed to move to Nashville. So I moved out here at 19, almost about 7 years ago now. And I just told my parents, I was like, I can always go back to college. I can always go back to school. I was never going to go back to school. And but they were so amazing. They agreed to help me move out there and kind of give me a few years, just like if I was going to school, and kind of instead of doing that, they gave me a couple years of support, and I'm super grateful for that because it got me on my feet, and once I was on my feet, I knew I could do it.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, you got that album coming out here in a few weeks, and but thinking to Nashville and some of the things you get to do there. I mean, I know you're part of the 615 house, things like that.
Yeah.
What's that like? Those connections, especially as an independent artist, things like that you get to make and do those amazing things.
Yeah. I think that anytime I get to, especially like in the kind of atmosphere right now where a lot of being an independent artist and being an artist in general is so different than it was when I moved here. Because the dream when you moved here 7 years ago, 10 years ago was like, I'm going to have great songs. I'm going to be in the right place at the right time. And someone is going to find me, right? And now it's sort of, for better or for worse, and both actually, you really get to take back a lot of that power, and you get to kind of hold the reins for whatever you want. So, being in something like the 615 house when you're an independent artist and you're kind of like a master of your own destiny in a way, and kind of getting to decide how much, how little you put in, with obviously the social media content is like the biggest thing these days. I think it's amazing, obviously. Does it get weirdly tiring and discouraging sometimes? Of course. I would be lying through my teeth if I said it wouldn't be like that. But I think that's why things like 615 House are so important, because just getting around other people that are doing the same thing, it can be so isolating. The industry, just like it is right now, because you're always just like, okay, me and my phone, we got this, But I think getting that chance to kind of collaborate with other people and put yourself literally just physically in a room with other people that are chasing the same dream and doing it in a way that's authentic to them. You can learn from them. They can learn from you. And it's been really, really, really like kind of healing for me. And like it's taken a bit of that anxiety away of just kind of like not knowing what I should be doing. Because we just get together and we just figure it out together. So it's a lot of fun to kind of add that aspect in while also navigating, my own individual career, if that makes sense.
Well, and part of that career is that new album, that debut album.
Yes.
It's a debut album.
It
Everyone's
really
recorded
is.
something
I wasn't
in
a
their past.
sentient human being. I wasn't a sentient person. I was 16. Like, it's okay.
Everyone's
We're 10
recorded
years
themselves
later,
once.
people. We're 10 years later, people. We can count this as the debut.
Well, and that debut album, Dear Life, comes out on March 7th. What's that process been like for you to build that album, and how has it been different than, say, when you've put out just singles or an EP or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been the most fun I've ever had recording a project. I mean, I count myself as an incredibly lucky person. My husband is my producer, and my best friend is my drummer. And of course, we hire musicians along the way to kind of round out the sound. I mentioned my fiddle player. He's been an instrumental part of this experience. But I count myself so lucky because to me, recording music is like one of the most fun and family-oriented aspects of the journey. And I just get to do it like with my favorite people. So for this album versus other projects, I would definitely say for other projects, like the last couple of EPs that I've released, they've just kind of been like, we were releasing singles and then being like, oh shit, there's 6 of them. You know, like, make that an EP and then like we'll do the next thing. So it was a little bit more like go with the flow and kind of see how many and then wrap it up into a bow kind of thing, where once I kind of like got the idea in my head to do this album, we really started from the ground up and did it in like a really traditional way, which I'm super proud of. You know, we had all of the songs that were going to be on the album before the album, you know, existed and before we started putting out singles and all that kind of thing. So I'm just really, really incredibly proud of the project and the body of work, and I feel it's really well-rounded, and if it's not, it's at least a very good representation of who I am as a person, which might not be well-rounded, so that might actually be perfect. But I'm just really proud of it, and I'm proud of the people that helped me make it, and it's just been a really organic and fun experience. So the singles that I've released are pretty, you know, representative of the full record itself, but I can't wait for people to get in there and hear the B-sides, because they are some of my favorite songs. I mean, the span of time that the album, you know, has been written over is at least 4 years, closer to 5. So the oldest songs on the album were written almost 5 years ago, which is crazy because it just goes to show you when a song is special, it just stands the test of time, and it's so cool. Like the title track of the record, Dear Life, is a song that I wrote with Carly Pearce's guitar player, Nick Scallern, and it was a one-on-one write, just me and him, our first write ever, and we wrote the song in 2020. Like, what?
Wow.
And I came back to that song so many times, and it was just a voice memo in my phone. And I would show it to Zach, my producer, and I was like, I just feel like this song, like, is really special. And then, you know, once we started to talk about the album, I looked back on my EPs and I was like, growing up, 20-something, Dear Life. It fits perfectly. It sort of like rounds out the trilogy of my releases, and the song is so funny to me because when I wrote it, I felt like I knew what it was about, but now 5 years later, I'm like, girl, you didn't know. Like, and now I listen to the song with a very new appreciation for the lyrics, and it's just so fun. So I hope the listeners can feel that as well.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you've released several of the songs off of it. One of my favorites, Casual Drinking. And
Thank you.
You got,
cheers.
Yeah, exactly. You've got, but you kind of go a nice, like you said, it's a little bit of different parts of life and things like that. So what will folks really get? Will they kind of get to, like you said, see a little bit inside of different things? I mean, looking at houses, things like that. I mean, I'm guessing those are different parts that have happened over those 5 years.
100%. And I think the best way I can sum up the experience of this record, or what I hope the experience is I hope it feels like you're on FaceTime with me. I hope it feels like this. Like, I am just a self-proclaimed open book, and I really wanted this record to feel like that. So that's what I certainly hope it feels like to the listener.
Well, I was going to say, what's it like to kind of share those experiences in song? Because it's one thing to maybe write them down somewhere and, you know, have that journal, but to share parts of yourself that could be vulnerable or, you know, people interpret it however they want. What's it like to kind of put that out there in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll let you know when the record comes out, because I put out the least vulnerable ones first. No, I'm kidding. It is scary in a way, but for me, it's also that kind of like cathartic feeling of like, I've just learned from so many of the great artists before me, and like so many of my close friends. I mean, of course, Alexandra Kay being a prime example. I mean, watching her go through, you know, her debut album experience and being on tour with her throughout that, watching people connect to her music was so eye-opening for me, and it just really reminded me, like, we don't need to be like rounding out our edges to be consumable and relatable to people. We need to be keeping them rough and rowdy and raw and just putting it all out there. I mean, when I think of my album, track 5 is especially vulnerable for me, and one that is not a single. But I look forward to people hearing that song, and I think it seems like a unique experience, but I don't think that it is. And I think everybody's been through that, where it's like, I think this has only happened to me, and 9 times out of 10 somebody else can relate to that. So I look forward to putting out, songs like that, because I think that while it won't be a single, it seems like one of the songs that people will probably come up to me and say, hey, that song, I've been through that, and that's the best part for me of being a songwriter.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, being able to connect with folks and have them connect to your music is pretty special.
Yeah.
And is it always kind of past experiences? Is it ideas? How does that songwriting process work for you? I'm guessing you have a few voice notes on your phone.
Oh my God. My phone's probably about to shut down. I actually, I have the new phone that has the button that you can program on the side. And my button is programmed to start voice memo. Like,
it's ready to go.
It just starts it, because sometimes I'm in the shower. You just never know. Like, sometimes I'm in the shower, sometimes I'm wherever, and like I need that thing to start. But exactly, it's kind of like it's a really like fun experience for me, because I am a very like melody forward person. Like, when I have an idea, it's normally attached to a melody. Occasionally, like, I'll write down something in my notes, but normally if something comes to me, I'm like singing like a little thing, like I'm like over here like, okay, like, sorry, I'll be right back. That type of thing. So it's a lot of fun to kind of like sort through those, and then like I've definitely figured out like my favorite songwriters in town and like my favorite people. Like, you'll see if you look through the credits on this album, like aside from obviously Zach, who's my producer and my husband, Lydia Dahl is one of my favorite songwriters in town. She's on 8 of the 13 songs on this album.
You might like her a little bit, just a little bit.
She just gets me, she just gets me. But it's really fun to like bring those like vulnerable ideas to people like that, who just really get, the meat of it and can kind of like guide you through it and like help you make sense of it. So that's like always just a really, really fun experience. And I mean, the songwriting experience looks different every time, but I would say for me, it normally starts with either a title or at least like a little melody idea or something hooky. Just something to jump off of for sure.
Well, and then I think you said this earlier, one of your favorite parts is when you get to share those songs on stage with people. And, like you said, you've gone from coffee shops to, opening for major country stars and playing at festivals to, being on acoustic tours with your friends. How's that been to kind of go from that small little venue to a whole different experience?
It's honestly, to me, this is going to sound so weird, but I feel like it's the same level of excitement. Like,
That's a good thing.
I feel that 15-year-old girl who got to, go play a cover gig with her, bandmates, whatever, that I feel when I get to go out on stage opening for Billy Currington or somebody like that. I feel very in touch with that young version of myself who couldn't believe she was getting to do, in the grand scheme of things, something a lot less exciting. But I feel that same experience when I get to open for my friends, open for these big artists. Like, I know that that's what I was meant to be doing. So it's the same level of excitement for me, whether it's a little show or a big show or anything in between. I just love being on stage, because for me, that's when the music feels real. When I can see people out there connecting to it is when it feels real for me.
Well, I was about ready to ask you what the best part is, but it sounds like being able to actually really share and connect is where it's all at.
100%. I totally agree.
And you've got the album Dear Life that's coming out, but you're also going to get to do something pretty special off of that, and you're about to go out on your first headlining tour. I'm guessing if you're excited just to be on stage, you're going to be extra excited for for that.
I am so excited. I mean, if you've ever seen one of my like Instagram or Facebook or TikTok lives, I'm like freaking out constantly about this tour. Like, I am so excited. I went out, like I said, on tour with Alexandra Kay, and I learned so much from her. I didn't think that I would be ready to do something like this for myself for a long time. Um, and I just learned so much from her. And what I mostly learned was you have to just do it. Stop waiting for like the perfect time or whatever, like waiting for some moment that doesn't exist or is manufactured, because it's just one or the other. It's just whatever you make it. And when I, decided to put out this record, I was like, well, I'm not going to be one of those artists that puts out an album and doesn't tour. I'm just not going to do that, because for me, the dream has always been being on stage, being on tour, and just connecting, because that's where I've always like found my joy. So I'm literally, when I say this, I mean it. I am totally independent. I have no management. I have no label, no booking agent, no publisher, no PR. It's just me doing this. So when you see me unboxing merch on the live stream later and like, showing the sweatshirt to remind people that I'm going on tour, like I'm sorting the merch, I'm packing it into boxes, like I'm doing everything. And like I do feel like at the end of the day, that's what makes me so grateful for everything, because I am boots on the ground. Like my boots, my cowboy boots are on the ground. Okay. And I'm just so grateful for the experience. But yes, all that to say, the tour that I'm going on is one that I've booked completely on my own, and I'm just so proud of that. It's really, really, really hard to go on tour. It's very expensive now. And obviously it's a labor of love at the end of the day, but I am confident and I am excited to, finally meet and see these people that are like making my music come to life. I mean, some of my friends that are very prominent in the social media area kind of, we'll get into conversations about how do you not get burnt out, or like, how do you keep going, or how do you stay positive, and optimistic and things like that. And I'm like, well, are you like connecting with your fans in like a physical way? Like, are you going to shows? Are you playing shows? Even something that I've been doing lately is like I started like a official fan club, and even just like kind of it's like you get to know the people that are in that, it's a small group, and guess what? Those people, if you book a show, they're gonna come. Like, they are so amazing. These people, like, I've just been encouraging my friends, like, give your fans a chance to show up for you, because they really will. It's unbelievable. I mean, the people that are gonna show up for me on this tour, a lot of them are folks that I met on the Alexandra Kay tour, and they have just become my biggest cheerleaders, and I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't be able to do this without them. So, being able to do that is amazing. And, yeah, to go out on this tour and to bring this album to life, because like I said, I mean, for me, that's when it really is real, is when I get to play it live. So I'm really excited. I mean, the thought that I'm going to look out and see people singing these songs is still wild, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to making it special for the people that do come.
Well, and like you said, those fans, they bring a couple of their friends who may not know who you are. They become fans. They bring some friends, and it builds from there. It's
all word of mouth. People so underestimate word of mouth, and I think it's still the most powerful thing.
Well, and they're gonna get a pretty good show with that album, and one of my favorite questions asked, I always ask at the beginning, what's your go-to drink? What are you drinking tonight? As I get toward the end, this is one of my favorite questions, because I swear every artist is different and it makes them think a little bit. But what's one of your favorite songs right now of yours to perform on stage?
Ooh, I think one of my favorites that's not one that we're performing yet, but that we're going to perform on the tour, is a song on the album called Irish Goodbye. It's a little bit of like a B-side, but I think once people hear it, because it's not a single, I think once people hear it, they'll be like, that's a smash. It's a lot of fun. It's one of my favorites on the record for sure.
I was going to say, it's always fun to hear too, because sometimes you can always do a little bit different with the live. You can have a little bit more fun. You can have your whole band perform something in it. So that's why I said it's always fun to see what everyone loves to perform. And, you know, you've got the album Dear Life, March 7th. You got the tour.
I'm so excited.
After that, what else can folks expect from you in 2025? Because it seems like you got a lot going on.
Is that not enough? I'm just kidding. No, the album is coming out, of course, March 7th. Like you said, the tour is going to be kicking off in March as well. And hopefully I'll be on some more festivals and shows this summer. Not slowing down anytime soon in regard to the live show aspect of things. So my hope is to, perform really well on the spring tour and get to bring it to hopefully the West Coast maybe, but maybe some more cities later this year, and just kind of get to expand and bring the record to some more people later this year for sure. Maybe a little remix here and there, maybe a little deluxe version of the album eventually. We'll see what goes on, but that's kind of my hope.
I like it. A good tease. See, you didn't even need to be told how to do this. You know exactly how to give the people wanting something more. And Haley, like I said, I love the songs. That's why I wanted to reach out and have you on.
Thank you so much.
And I can't wait to see what people get, what they get to see with the album, the tour, and so much more. And thanks for sharing a drink with me. Cheers.
I'm so excited. Cheers. Thank you so much for having me.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.